So it's that time of year. The fantasy football playoffs are upon us, and I realize that this topic today is definitely not for everyone. We are fully nerding out, and I know that many people don't really even people who like fantasy football don't care about other people's situation. However, this one it's pretty big. It's a national tournament, so I just wanted to maybe this is even therapeutic for me, or just to talk about this out loud maybe helps the cause, as you'll see in a minute. Anyway, if you're not that interested, then hang up now, and I won't charge you for this episode. If you are, and you're like me, and you care, this is going to be fun just to give you the background of what I'm heading into over weeks 14, 15, 16, because it's not just, hey, Chris made the playoffs. It's not like your traditional league. I have that too with my friends' league, but that's, certainly no one's interested in that. What I want to talk about is the situation in the FFPC, which is the Fantasy Football Players Championship. It is a national league, probably the highest stakes tournament, or FFPC has the highest stakes leagues. Not daily. This is season long only. They probably started 12 years ago, maybe. I've been in it every year since its inception. Before that, it was the World Championship of Fantasy Football, Wyckoff WCOFF, that folded. Then the FFPC started. I've been playing in these since they started. It started as obviously a lot smaller, only live drafts in Vegas. Then they moved to Vegas and Atlantic City. Then they went to online. So the first few years, I was in my mid-20s, and I went to Vegas every year and did the draft, probably on absolutely zero sleep from the night out straight to the draft room the next morning, and still killed it. I had less kids then. And then I just moved to strictly online until this year. I actually made the move and went to Vegas this September, which I probably talked about on this podcast back then. Took my brother for his 30th birthday. He met me from LA, and spent a weekend in Vegas, draft live with a bunch of other nerds. And it's an amazing scene. It's just this, huge conference room. This year it was, Planet Hollywood was the hotel it was in. Every year it's a different spot. And it's just all different groups of 12 all drafting at the same time. So just a little background on the FFPC. It's about 2,000 teams, I would say. 1,500 to 2,000, something like that. And you get split up into leagues of 12, right? So the first 13 weeks of the season, you're playing against your group of 12. Weeks 1 through 11 is the regular season. You play every team once. 4 teams move on to the semifinals week 12, and then the league Super Bowl week 13. So all these leagues are going on at once. All these drafts are going on at once in the live draft. Otherwise, you can draft online. A bunch of drafts going on at once, and everyone gets their teams. Obviously, each league has similar players, right? So whoever picked first in League 2 has Gurley, and whoever picked first in League 12 has Gurley. Anyhow, I won my league regular season, finished 9-2. I got the 1 seed, which comes with a little bit of cash. So Avs won that, and obviously moved on to the league playoffs. And the 1 seed gave me an automatic berth in weeks 14, 15, 16. So I didn't explain that part. Weeks 14, 15, 16, all of the winners of the leagues, most best record and most points, and maybe a wild card here or there, all move on to weeks 14, 15, 16, which is no longer head-to-head. It's a cumulative tournament, and the grand prize is $250,000. Maybe I buried the lead there and should have dropped that one a few minutes ago. So I'm now about to head into this 3-week tournament for $250K. And the way that they determine the winner of that is your average score from weeks 1 through 11. So your regular season average is 25%. Week 14, 25%. Week 15, 25%. Week 16, 25%. And you just add it up, playing against 300 other dicks like me who won their league, had the most points, who qualified. And the one with the most points after week 16 takes home $250K. And second place, $50K. There's some decent payout structure. It becomes a little flat after the first, 20 or so. And and I'm gearing up for that. So I wanted to share it with you other football nerds out there. So where we're at right now, okay? This is the team I drafted, and there's no trading in the FFPC to stop collusion because of such high stakes. So it's essentially just how you do in the draft and how you do on free agency throughout the year, blind bidding each week to build your squad. So obviously I crushed it on draft day. So here's my draft day lineup, or my draft day team roster. QB, I had Dalton and Mariota. Running back, Kareem Hunt, Chris Thompson, Aaron Jones, Ronald Jones, Nick Chubb, Jeremy Hill. Receiver, Odell Beckham, Adam Thielen, Jarvis Landry, Will Fuller, Kenny Golladay, Chris Godwin, Tyrell Williams, Quincy Enunwa. Tight end, Jordan Reed, Jack Doyle. Defense kicker, who cares? I change them every week pretty much and just play matchups. So, crushed it, right? Had the studs up top and had those lottery tickets like Aaron Jones and Nick Chubb just waiting in the background. So not much has changed with that team, right? Other than the players emerging, some getting hurt, some being kicked out of the league. So that the change from that day, the changes to my roster today are as follows. My one, I guess, big change was at QB. So I want to say week 7 or 8, whenever Fitzpatrick took back over for Jameis in Tampa, I had a bunch of money left. I hadn't needed to really spend that, or on free agency. There weren't that many studs that came along. I think Philip Lindsay was the only one, and he was after week 1. I did go in on him and lost that bid by a little bit. That would have been a massive upgrade, obviously, or just a massive addition to this squad. But anyway. So I had a lot of money left, only a few weeks left in the regular season. So I said, I'm going to go all in on Fitz. If he takes back over this job, the Tampa Bay QB has been basically the number 2 fantasy player at that position behind Mahomes all year long. So I'm like, you know what? I upgrade from Dalton to Fitzpatrick. I'm going to go for it. So I bid a bunch. I got Fitzpatrick. The next week, I realized that weekend, the Jameis owner released him. I guess he thought, I'm fed up with him. Fitz is back in, taking over. Jameis is done. I picked up Jameis for $2. So now I had Tampa Bay QB locked up for the rest of the year and felt really good about adding that to my core below. So now I have Jameis heading into the playoffs, and Jameis is not giving this job back up. Also added Adam Humphries, who's been a nice addition. He's only started for me, I think, once, but been a quality player and has that stack upside with Jameis. Got Vernon Davis to back up Jordan Reed for the inevitable injury that still hasn't come. Chris Conley's on my roster today. Probably will not see my lineup, but Watkins already out. If Tyreek were to go down, I might have Mahomes' number 1 wide receiver there on the bench as a dart throw that a lot of other people wouldn't have. So nice guy to carry, probably won't play. And then I have Dak Prescott as my backup to Jameis, who I picked up, I want to say 2 weeks ago, who's been playing really high-level ball right now and has a really nice week. 14. All 3 weeks are good. Jameis has the Saints this week, so Jameis is not coming out of my lineup. But week 15, 16, he's at Indy and then hosts Tampa. It's actually Dak versus Jameis in week 16. So that's where I'm at right now with my lineup. The negatives that I see rolling into this 3-week tournament here. Kareem Hunt, my number 1 draft pick, 11 overall. Fuck him, but obviously major blow. If you add Kareem Hunt to this lineup and I look downright scary. But we move on. We don't want that type of negativity in our locker room in this important time of year. Jack Doyle going down really hurts. I'm a big Jack Doyle fan, a big fan of that offense, and another negative to pair with Doyle is now Mark Sanchez. Because Reed was looking pretty good lately with Colt McCoy. I kind of liked the variance that I would have as Reed. Like, basically everyone in this tournament, if you don't have Kelsey or Ertz, you're probably pretty shitty at tight end. Maybe Ebron is a good play now that Doyle's out. So, like, Reed could be right in the mix there as one of the top guys. Now that it's going to be Sanchez throwing him the ball, I really could use Jack Doyle as a balance to swap in for Reed in one of these 3 weeks at least. So that hurts, and not having Hunt and Doyle, I really lose the flexibility of lineup structure, because I think in this 3 week playoff here, you need lineup variance, right? Like, you can't have a down week. All 3 weeks have to be top notch, 180 plus, right? And I don't think the same exact lineup can actually do that 3 weeks in a row. I think it's very hard. So you want to be able to, have 3 running backs 1 week, 4 running backs 1 week, 4 receivers 1 week. It's dual flex. It's two running backs, 2 receivers, dual flex, and tight ends are 1.5 per point per reception, just to give you a little background on the scoring. So I lose that little bit of flexibility there by losing a tight end and a running back who would certainly be in the mix for that switch up every week, right? So I lose a little bit of that variance. I still have some ways to make lineup changes week to week, especially with the Jameis to Godwin and Humphreys stack potential, but lost a little bit there. Positives, my core, the four guys who are going to start for me every week, all 3, are Aaron Jones, Nick Chubb, Beckham, and Thielen, right? And all I have at tight end is Reed and Vernon Davis. I almost wouldn't even mind if Reed got hurt and Vern was the guy there, so they didn't even split any plays, and it was Vernon Davis on the field for 100% of the snaps. But the idea that I can't swap out a tight end there, not ideal. But my core is tight. And with Jameis and maybe throwing in Dak, I feel pretty good about that. So there are these 2 spots, these 2 flex spots each week that I need to account for. And the options there each week are Galladay, who's obviously a stud and highest target share in the league over the last month since Golden Tate went out and now Marvin Jones is out. So he's Stafford's guy. Stafford hasn't been so impressive lately, so there are some down weeks. He's playing against Patrick Peterson on the road this week. He's got a little hamstring, so I'm not super psyched about him this week. Godwin, who I love, especially with the Jameis stack potential there, especially because there's always that second-year receiver. Like, Godwin's just such the prototype to explode over the last month, right? Second year, good offense that throws the ball a lot, alpha dog athletic profile. Like, he's going to be a great player in this league, and Deshaun Jackson thumb injury clearing the way for him. Everything is set up for Godwin to be one of those guys over the next 3 weeks that becomes everyone's darling, and everyone wants to draft him high next year in 2019 draft. So I feel really good about getting Godwin in my lineup in one of those flex spots. Humphreys has been incredibly serviceable, so he's an alternative there to throw in. And then Chris Thompson, who the first 2 weeks of the season, 3 weeks of the season, before he hurt his ribs, was a top 10 running back in this league. It's a PPR format. I assume you would just assume that if you're listening. If you've got this far, you assume that I'm playing in PPR league. So Chris Thompson, but then again, Mark Sanchez, right? So I just think that offense has such a low floor that it'll be hard to trust Thompson. If Thompson was in there with McCoy, just coming back healthy, with Chris Thompson's upside, I would love to be able to mix him into this, but I don't see that happening. Another one, the last one, is Jarvis Landry. So I loved Landry going into the season. I had the 11th pick, so at 3:11 I took Thielen. At 4:2 I really debated 2 guys, and it was Jarvis and Juju Smith-Schuster. And I went Jarvis, and that didn't work out the way it should have. I should have taken Juju, or in hindsight, I don't know who I should have taken, but Juju ended up with the better production this year. Jarvis had a little renaissance game last week, I think 6 for over 100. So I'm probably not going to play him this week, but week 15, Cleveland is at Denver. Denver's good against the run. No more Chris Harris. So Jarvis in the slot could be the guy who comes in there. And the reason I'm looking ahead to week 15 is because Jameis and the Bucs travel to Baltimore. So my guess is that Jameis out of my lineup for Dak week 15. Godwin, Humphreys, probably out. I'd probably go all Tampa out on the road at Baltimore, the way they just shut down Atlanta, and we'll see what they do in KC this week. And I get Galladay for sure in that spot, even though he's on the road at Buffalo, which is not ideal depending on the weather. So week 15 is a little tough looking forward, that I think Jarvis Landry at Denver is a pretty decent spot, and he probably gets in there. So that's what I'm looking at, right? We need to average, I think, 180-ish plus to win, and no down weeks. So how do we get there, right? If this week I go with this Jameis stack at home against New Orleans, Jameis, Humphreys, Godwin, you want 70 points between those three spots. My Tampa guys, doable. From my backfield of Jones and Chubb, I want 40. That's 150 right there. Sorry, that's 110 right there. Between Beckham and Thielen, my studs, I need 50. That's 160 right there. And then between Reed, kicker, defense, who knows, somewhere between 30 and 50 if I'm really lucky and one of those things, breaks through. Then we're looking at, 180, 190 up to 210. That's how you get there. And yeah, things need to click. You need to get lucky for sure. I think I have the horses to do it. I told you my negatives. Defensively, I actually like the way I set myself up. I carried a few defenses just to play matchups. I have Buffalo hosting the Jets and Sam Darnold this week. Low over under. Obviously, Darnold is prone to throw some picks, so I like where I'm at there. I have Buffalo next week at home hosting the Lions. Stafford obviously prone to really crappy games, especially outside on the road and cold. And then week 16, I have the Cleveland defense hosting Cincinnati and Jeff Driscoll. So I feel pretty good about defense and the chance to have at least one breakthrough week, 20, 25 points out of your defense, which is a huge variance play here. Shot in the dark, you can't really forecast those things. It's either going to happen for you or it's not. And then kicker, I have Suckup and Badgley. Interchange those two over the 3 weeks. Haven't planned that far ahead yet. So that's where we're at heading into week 14. Feeling pretty good. Feeling a little nervous, but you never know what can happen. And the idea that, 3 weeks from now, right after week 16, the potential exists for me to say, hey, I'm the fantasy football players champion, seems kind of exciting. Of course, by 4 o'clock on this Sunday, it could be out the window. If I'm putting up, if I have 80% of my lineup in already and I only have 100 points, then I'm out. It's done. And yeah, I can still play the next 2 weeks to try to place, 35th and maybe win a couple grand. But the big money will be out pretty fast if that's how we start. Not the plan. Going in with positive attitude. I like my lineup. I like the Jameis stack potential to deviate from the masses. And let's fucking go. I hope you guys are doing well in your fantasy football world and heading to the playoffs in your own right. And good luck. Let's win some dough. See ya.